The phone rang at exactly 12:15 in the morning, jarring me from the deepest sleep I'd had in weeks. I fumbled for it in the darkness, my heart already racing with that familiar dread that comes with late-night calls at my age. "Dad, help me. Please, you have to come get us right now. Please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what city you're watching from." Sarah's voice was frantic, breathless. In the background, I could hear what sounded like children crying, though something about it seemed muffled, distant. "Sarah, what's happening? Where are you?" "Jacob kicked us out. He threw me and the kids out on the street. We have nowhere to go, Dad. Please, we're scared and it's cold and the kids are crying and I don't know what to do." My mind struggled to process what she was telling me. Jacob had always seemed like a decent man, maybe a little serious, but he'd been married to Sarah for 5 years now. Little Emma was 4 and Tommy had just turned 2. The idea of him throwing them out in the middle of the night seemed impossible. "Slow down, sweetheart. Tell me exactly what happened. Where are you right now?" "We're at the gas station on Maple Street, the 24-hour one near the highway. Dad, I'm so scared." Jacob was screaming at me, saying horrible things, and he just told us to get out. He wouldn't even let me pack clothes for the kids properly. I was already pulling on my pants, balancing the phone against my shoulder. "I'm coming right now. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere else." "Hurry, Dad, please hurry." The drive to Maple Street took me 15 minutes through empty roads that glistened with late October frost. My mind raced with questions that wouldn't quiet down. Sarah and Jacob had seemed fine just last week when they'd come for Sunday dinner. Sure, there had been some tension between them, but what married couple didn't have their rough patches? I pulled into the gas station parking lot and immediately spotted Sarah's small blue Honda parked near the air pump. Through the windshield, I could see 2 small figures in car seats in the back. Sarah climbed out as soon as she saw my headlights. Even in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the gas station, I could see she'd been crying. Her mascara had run in dark streaks down her cheeks, and her hair was disheveled. She was wearing a thin sweater and jeans, completely inadequate for the cold night. "Oh, Dad, thank God you're here," she sobbed, throwing her arms around me. I held her for a moment, feeling how she trembled against my chest. "It's okay now. You're safe. Let's get you and the kids back to my house where it's warm." I helped transfer the children to my car. Emma was asleep, her small face peaceful despite the chaos around her. Tommy stirred slightly as I lifted him from his car seat, but settled back into sleep immediately. Something about their calm struck me as odd. If there had been screaming and chaos at home, wouldn't they be more upset, more wakeful? Sarah followed me in her car, and during the drive back to my house, more questions began forming. Why hadn't she called earlier if things had been building up to this point? Jacob was methodical about everything. His work, his finances, even the way he organized his garage. It seemed completely out of character for him to explode without warning. Back at my house, I helped carry the sleeping children to the guest room that I'd set up for their visits. Sarah moved around nervously, avoiding eye contact, her hands shaking as she tried to tuck Emma under the blankets. "Sarah, sit down. Tell me what really happened tonight." She perched on the edge of the couch in my living room, still wearing her jacket even though the house was warm. "It started over something stupid. Jacob's been acting strange lately, paranoid about money, questioning everything I spend. Tonight he started going through my purse, looking at receipts, asking where I'd been during the day. That does sound unusual for him, right? It was like he didn't trust me anymore. Then he started saying crazy things about the kids, about our family, about how things didn't add up. He was talking like a crazy person, Dad. I got scared. I studied my daughter's face in the lamplight. Sarah had always been dramatic, even as a child, but there was something different about her story tonight. The details felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced what she would say. What kind of things was he saying about the kids? Just nonsense. Paranoid stuff about how Emma doesn't look like him, how Tommy has different colored eyes. You know how people always see what they want to see in children's faces. Actually, I'd noticed the same things myself, though I'd never mentioned them. Emma had dark hair and olive skin, completely different from Jacob's fair complexion and light brown hair. Tommy's eyes were a striking green that neither Sarah nor Jacob possessed, but children often took after grandparents or distant relatives. It wasn't unusual. Maybe he's just stressed about work. You know how men can get when they feel pressured financially. Sarah nodded eagerly. Too eagerly. Yes, exactly. His job has been really demanding lately. He's been working late, coming home in bad moods. I think the pressure finally got to him. She stood up and walked to the window, peering out through the curtains, as if she expected to see Jacob's car pulling into the driveway. "He won't come here, will he? I'm scared of what he might do." "Sarah, has Jacob ever been violent with you? Has he ever hit you or the children?" "No, not exactly. But tonight he was so angry and his voice was so cold. It wasn't like him at all. I've never seen him like that before." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October weather. If Jacob had truly become violent or unstable, then Sarah and the children were absolutely right to leave. But something about her story kept nagging at me. "Did you bring anything with you? Clothes for the children, important documents?" I grabbed what I could, but he was rushing us out so fast. Most of our stuff is still at the house. I glanced toward the guest room where I'd carried 2 small overnight bags and a diaper bag from Sarah's car. For someone who'd been rushed out with no time to pack, she'd managed to gather quite a bit. "Why don't you try to get some sleep? Tomorrow we can figure out what to do next. Maybe Jacob will calm down and you two can talk things through." Sarah shook her head violently. "No, Dad, I can't go back there. Not after tonight. I think I might need to file for divorce." The word hung in the air between us. Divorce. After 5 years of marriage, 2 beautiful children, a house they'd just finished renovating. It seemed like such a drastic step based on one bad fight. "That's a big decision, sweetheart. Don't you think you should give it some time, let emotions settle down? You don't understand how bad it was. The things he said about our family, about the children. I can't forget those words." Sarah's voice broke on the last sentence, and fresh tears began flowing down her cheeks. I moved to comfort her, but she pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself. "I just need to sleep. Maybe things will be clearer in the morning." I watched her walk toward the guest room, noting how she moved carefully, quietly, like someone trying not to wake sleeping children. But both Emma and Tommy were exhausted enough that normal conversation wouldn't have disturbed them. As I locked up the house and turned off the lights, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important. Sarah's story felt incomplete, like a jigsaw puzzle with several crucial pieces hidden from view. I lay awake for a long time that night, staring at the ceiling and listening to the old house settle around us. Somewhere in the guest room, my daughter and grandchildren were sleeping, refugees from a marriage that had apparently collapsed in a single evening. But the more I replayed Sarah's words, the more questions multiplied in my mind. Why had she seemed so prepared, if the fight had truly come out of nowhere? Why were the children so calm? And most troubling of all, why did I have the growing suspicion that there was much more to this story than my daughter was telling me? I woke up at 6:30 the next morning to the sound of someone pounding on my front door. Through the window, I could see Jacob's pickup truck in my driveway and my son-in-law standing on my porch, looking like he hadn't slept all night. Sarah was still asleep and the children hadn't stirred yet, so I quickly pulled on a robe and answered the door before the noise could wake anyone. "James, thank God. Is Sarah here? Are the kids okay?" Jacob's face was haggard, his usually neat hair uncombed, his clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them. But what struck me most was the look in his eyes, not anger or violence, but something closer to desperation and heartbreak. "They're here. They're safe. Come in, but keep your voice down." Everyone's still sleeping. He followed me into the kitchen and I started making coffee with shaking hands. Whatever had happened between them, seeing Jacob like this made me realize the situation was far more complex than Sarah had made it seem. "Jacob, Sarah told me you threw them out last night. She said you were angry that there was shouting." He sat down heavily at my kitchen table and put his head in his hands. "James, I need to tell you something, and I don't know how to say it without destroying everything. Just tell me the truth." Jacob was quiet for a long moment, gathering himself. When he looked up, his eyes were rimmed with red. "I found some papers yesterday, medical documents that Sarah had hidden in her dresser drawer. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for batteries for Tommy's toy, and Sarah always keeps them in that drawer with other household stuff." He pulled a folded manila envelope from his jacket pocket and set it on the table between us. "James, these are DNA test results for both Emma and Tommy." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "DNA tests? I'm not their biological father." The words hit me like a physical blow. I set down my cup before I could drop it. "That's impossible. You've been there since they were born. You're on their birth certificates." "Being on the birth certificate doesn't change biology." Jacob's voice was hollow, like he was reciting facts about someone else's life. According to these tests, there's zero possibility that I'm Emma's father and zero possibility that I'm Tommy's father. I stared at the envelope, afraid to touch it, afraid to see the evidence that would make this real. When were these tests done? 6 months ago. Look at the dates, James. Sarah had them done in secret and never told me. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope and pulled out the official laboratory reports. The technical language was dense, but the conclusions were crystal clear. Jacob Michael Thompson was excluded as the biological father of both children, with 99.9% certainty. I confronted her about it yesterday evening after the kids were in bed. I asked her to explain these documents, to help me understand what they meant. What did she say? Jacob laughed bitterly. At first she denied they were real, said someone was trying to frame her, that the tests were fake. When I pointed out they were from a legitimate laboratory with her signature on the authorization forms, she changed her story. He stood up and began pacing around my small kitchen, too agitated to sit still. Then she said she'd done the tests because she was worried about some genetic condition in her family. Said she wanted to make sure the kids didn't inherit anything dangerous. When I asked why she hadn't included my DNA for comparison, she claimed the lab had made an error. But you didn't believe her. James, I've been married to your daughter for 5 years. I know when she's lying. Her whole story kept changing every time I asked a follow-up question. I felt sick. The coffee in my stomach churned as the implications of what Jacob was telling me began to sink in. So, what really happened last night? I told her I needed the truth. All of it. No more lies, no more stories. I said I deserved to know who my children's real father was, and when their relationship had started. Jacob sat back down, his shoulders sagging with exhaustion. She completely lost it, James. Started screaming that I was accusing her of cheating, that I was a terrible husband for not trusting her. But she still wouldn't give me a straight answer about the tests. Then what happened? I told her I was going to call the laboratory in the morning to verify the results myself. That's when she grabbed the kids and said she was leaving. She said I was being abusive and paranoid, and that she wouldn't let me destroy our family with my suspicions. The pieces of Sarah's story from the night before began rearranging themselves in my mind. She hadn't been thrown out. She'd fled rather than face more questions she couldn't answer. Jacob, did you raise your voice? Did you threaten her in any way? I was hurt, James. I was confused and angry and heartbroken, but I never shouted at her, and I certainly never threatened her. When she started packing bags for herself and the kids, I tried to talk her out of leaving. I told her we could work through this together if she would just be honest with me. He pulled his phone from his pocket and scrolled through his call log. I've been trying to reach her since she left. I called probably 20 times last night, but she wouldn't answer. That's why I came here. I was hoping she'd at least let me know the children were safe. I thought about Sarah's performance the night before, her tears and trembling, the way she'd painted Jacob as an unstable, violent man. None of it matched the exhausted, heartbroken person sitting across from me. Jacob, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the absolute truth. Of course. Do you love those children? His face crumpled, and for a moment I thought he was going to break down completely. James, they're my whole world. I've been there for every midnight feeding, every first step, every scraped knee. I taught Emma how to ride her bicycle. I still get up with Tommy when he has nightmares. The idea that they're not biologically mine doesn't change how I feel about them. Then why does it matter? Why can't you just accept them as your children regardless of genetics? Jacob was quiet for a long time, staring out the kitchen window toward the sunrise. It's not about the children, James. It's about Sarah. If she's been lying to me about something this fundamental for 5 years, what else has she been lying about? How can I trust anything about our marriage? The question hung in the air between us, and I realized I didn't have an answer. How do you rebuild trust after discovering that the foundation of your family was built on deception? Have you thought about who the real father might be? I've been going through our timeline, trying to figure out when she could have been seeing someone else. Emma was born 9 months after our wedding, so that relationship would have been happening right around when we got married. Tommy was conceived about 2 years later. Jacob pulled out his phone and showed me his calculator app, where he'd been working out dates and timelines. Based on Emma's birthday, Sarah would have gotten pregnant on our honeymoon trip. But we weren't together the whole time. She spent 2 days visiting her college roommate while I was at a work conference. And Tommy, he was conceived during that period when I was traveling a lot for work, sometimes gone for a week at a time. The systematic way Jacob had been analyzing the situation showed me how much thought he'd put into this. This wasn't a man who'd exploded in irrational jealousy. This was someone methodically trying to understand how his life had been built on lies. What do you want to do now? I want Sarah to tell me the truth, all of it. I want to know who the children's father is, how long the affair lasted, whether it's still going on. And then I want us to figure out how to move forward in a way that protects Emma and Tommy. From upstairs, I could hear the sound of small feet running across the floor. The children were waking up, and soon Sarah would be up too. I needed to decide how to handle this situation before she came downstairs and found Jacob in my kitchen. Jacob, I need you to leave before Sarah wakes up. Not because I don't believe you, but because I need to talk to her myself. I need to hear her side of this story. He nodded and stood to go. Will you call me later? Will you let me know how the children are doing? Of course. And Jacob, whatever happens between you and Sarah, those children love you. Don't forget that. He paused at my back door, looking older than his 30 years. I just keep thinking about how much time I've lost. 5 years of thinking I had a family, thinking I knew who I was. Now I don't know anything for certain anymore. After Jacob left, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the DNA test results spread across my table. Upstairs, I could hear Sarah moving around, probably getting the children dressed and ready for breakfast. In a few minutes, she would come down here expecting sympathy and support for her escape from an abusive marriage. Instead, I would have to confront her with evidence that everything she'd told me was a lie. But first, I needed to understand exactly how deep those lies went and what they meant for all of us. Sarah came downstairs 20 minutes later with both children in tow. Emma was chattering happily about the new room she'd slept in, while Tommy clutched his favorite stuffed elephant and rubbed his sleepy eyes. Watching them, so innocent and unaware of the adult drama swirling around them, made my chest ache. Morning, Dad. The kids are hungry. Do you have anything for breakfast? Sarah moved around my kitchen with practiced ease, opening cabinets and checking the refrigerator, as if nothing had changed since the night before. But I noticed she avoided looking directly at me, and her hands shook slightly as she poured juice for the children. Sarah, we need to talk after breakfast when the kids are settled. She glanced at me sharply. What about? Jacob was here this morning. Her face went white, and the juice carton slipped from her fingers, splashing orange liquid across my kitchen counter. He was here? What did he want? Did he threaten you? He wanted to know if you and the children were safe, and he wanted to tell me his side of what happened last night. Sarah grabbed paper towels and began cleaning up the spilled juice with frantic movements, her breathing shallow and quick. You can't believe anything he says, Dad. He's not thinking clearly. The stress of work has made him paranoid and unstable. I helped Emma and Tommy get settled at the table with cereal and toast, buying myself time to figure out how to approach this conversation. The children seemed completely normal. No signs of trauma or fear that you'd expect if they'd witnessed their father having a violent breakdown. Kids, after breakfast, why don't you go watch cartoons in the living room? Grandpa has some new movies you haven't seen yet. Once Emma and Tommy were absorbed in their morning shows, I closed the kitchen door and sat down across from Sarah at the table. The DNA test results were still in the manila envelope where I'd left them, and I could see her eyes keep darting toward it. Sarah, I need you to look at something. I slid the envelope across the table. She stared at it without touching it, as if it might explode. What is that? I think you know what it is. For a long moment we sat in silence. Then Sarah's composure finally cracked and she began to cry. Not the dramatic sobs from the night before, but quiet tears that seemed to come from someplace much deeper. You weren't supposed to see those, but Jacob was. She shook her head. Nobody was supposed to see them. I was going to destroy them. I opened the envelope and spread the test results on the table between us. Sarah, these say that Jacob is not the biological father of either Emma or Tommy. Is that true? She couldn't speak, just nodded while tears dripped onto the official laboratory letterhead. How long have you known? Since before Emma was born. Her voice was barely a whisper. I suspected during the pregnancy, but I hoped. I kept hoping I was wrong. The casual way she admitted to 5 years of deception left me speechless. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was a calculated lie that had shaped every day of her marriage. Who is their father? Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her makeup. Someone I used to know. Someone from before I married Jacob. Before? Sarah, Emma was born 9 months after your wedding. That means you were seeing this other man during your engagement, possibly on your honeymoon. It's complicated, Dad. No, it's not complicated. Either you were having an affair or you weren't. Either you knew Jacob wasn't the father or you didn't. She stood up and walked to the window, hugging her arms around herself. I loved Jacob, I still love him, but there was someone else, someone I couldn't let go of. Who? Marcus, my college boyfriend. We had this on and off relationship for years. Even after I started dating Jacob, Marcus would call or show up and I could never tell him no. I felt sick listening to her confession. So, you were cheating on Jacob throughout your entire relationship? It wasn't like that. Marcus and I had history. We understood each other in ways that Jacob never could, but Marcus wasn't ready for marriage or kids or any of that stability stuff. Jacob was the safe choice. The safe choice. I repeated her words, trying to process the coldness of her logic. So you married Jacob for security while continuing to sleep with Marcus? I thought it would stop after the wedding. I thought getting married would make it easier to cut ties with Marcus. But then on our honeymoon, Jacob had to attend that stupid work conference for 2 days and I was alone. And Marcus called. She trailed off, but I could fill in the blanks. That's when Emma was conceived. I didn't know for sure until she was born. But the timing was right and she looked so much like Marcus. Still, I hoped maybe I was wrong. Maybe genetics could be unpredictable. But you had a DNA test done anyway. When Emma was 6 months old, I had to know for certain. I tried to imagine living with that kind of deception for years, watching Jacob bond with a child who wasn't his, celebrating Father's Days and birthdays built on lies. What about Tommy? Sarah's face crumpled again. That was supposed to be different. After Emma was born, I cut off contact with Marcus completely. I was determined to make my marriage work, to be the wife Jacob deserved. But Jacob was traveling so much for work and I was home alone with a baby and I felt so isolated. When Marcus showed up at my door one night saying he'd made a mistake, that he was ready to commit this time, you slept with him again. Just once. It was supposed to be closure, a final goodbye. I never thought I'd get pregnant. The pattern was becoming clear now. Sarah hadn't made one mistake. She'd made a series of choices, each one compounding the deception and making it harder to tell the truth. Does Marcus know about the children? No. He moved to California right after Tommy was conceived. He doesn't even know I had another baby. So Jacob has been raising and supporting 2 children that aren't his, while their actual father has no idea they exist. Sarah nodded miserably. I know how it sounds, but I was trying to protect everyone. Jacob loves those kids. He's a good father to them. What would be gained by destroying that? The truth would be gained, Sarah. The truth that Jacob deserves to know about his own life. She whirled around to face me, and for the first time I saw a flash of anger in her eyes. The truth. You want to talk about truth. The truth is that Jacob could never have given me what I needed emotionally. He's stable and reliable and boring. Marcus was passionate and exciting and unpredictable. I needed both of them in my life. So you decided to lie to both of them. I decided to build the best life I could for my children. Emma and Tommy have a father who adores them, a stable home, financial security. Why should I destroy that to satisfy some abstract notion of honesty? The selfishness of her reasoning astounded me. She'd stolen 5 years of Jacob's life, built her family's security on his ignorance, and somehow convinced herself she was the victim. What about last night? Why did you run instead of finally telling Jacob the truth? Because I knew he'd leave. I knew he'd take the kids away from me. Or worse, he'd stay out of duty but never forgive me. Either way, my family would be destroyed. Your family was built on lies, Sarah. It was already destroyed. You just hadn't admitted it yet. She slammed her hand on the kitchen counter, making the salt and pepper shakers jump. Easy for you to say, Dad. You've never had to make impossible choices. You've never had to choose between hurting people you love and protecting your children's future. I've never built my life on deliberate deception either. We stared at each other across my kitchen, and I realized I was looking at a stranger. This wasn't the daughter I'd raised, the little girl who used to confess to breaking vases before I'd even noticed they were missing. This was someone who'd learned to lie so skillfully that she'd convinced herself her motives were noble. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now you have to decide what kind of person you want to be going forward. Are you going to keep lying, keep manipulating everyone around you to maintain this fantasy? Or are you going to face the consequences of your choices? And if I choose to tell the truth, Then Jacob gets to decide what he wants to do with his life based on real information instead of lies. The children get to know their actual heritage, and you get to live without carrying this secret anymore. Sarah laughed bitterly. You make it sound so simple. Tell the truth, and everything will be fine. I didn't say everything would be fine. I said it would be honest. From the living room, I could hear Emma asking Tommy to share his toys. Their innocent voices reminded me that whatever happened between the adults, two small children were going to be affected by every decision we made from this point forward. There's something else you need to know, Sarah said quietly. My stomach dropped. What else? The affair with Marcus. It didn't end when Tommy was conceived. I closed my eyes, dreading what was coming next. He came back to town 3 months ago. He's been staying at the motel on Highway 9. We've been seeing each other again. You're still cheating on Jacob. Marcus says he's ready now. Ready for a real relationship, ready to be a father. He wants me to leave Jacob and bring the kids to California with him. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. That's why you had those DNA tests done 6 months ago. You were planning to leave Jacob anyway. Sarah nodded. Marcus wanted proof that the children were his before he'd commit to taking us on. He's always been careful about things like that. I stared at my daughter, wondering when she'd become someone I didn't recognize. So your plan was to take Jacob's children away from him and give them to a man who required DNA evidence before he'd accept them. They're not Jacob's children, Dad. They never were. But Jacob doesn't know that. In his heart, in every way that matters, those children are his. Hearts don't matter in custody court, biology does. The coldness of her words chilled me to the bone. This wasn't just about lies anymore. This was about destroying a man who'd done nothing wrong except love and trust the wrong woman. I spent the rest of that morning in a daze, watching Sarah interact with Emma and Tommy as if nothing had changed. She read them stories, helped them build block towers, laughed at their jokes. To an outside observer, she looked like any loving mother spending quality time with her children, but now I saw something different in her interactions. There was a calculation behind her smiles, a performance quality to her maternal affection. She was already practicing for her new audience, Marcus, who would need to see her as a devoted mother worth leaving his bachelor life behind for. Around noon, Sarah's phone started buzzing with text messages. She glanced at it repeatedly while pretending to focus on the children, her face cycling through emotions I couldn't quite read. Is that Jacob? I asked. No, it's Marcus. He wants to know when I'm coming to meet him. You're planning to see him today? Sarah looked toward the living room where the children were absorbed in a movie. He's leaving town tomorrow. If I don't give him an answer about California, this is my chance, Dad. My chance for a real life with someone who actually understands me. What about Jacob? What about him? He'll be fine. He's young, he's got a good job, he'll find someone else eventually, someone who can give him his own children. The casual dismissal of 5 years of marriage left me speechless. Sarah, that man loves you. He loves those children. You can't just throw that away like it means nothing. Love isn't enough, Dad. I learned that the hard way. Marcus and I have something deeper than love. We have passion, chemistry, a real connection. You have an affair. That's not the same thing. She stood up and began pacing around my living room, her agitation growing. You don't understand because you've never felt that kind of intensity. You married Mom when you were both barely out of high school and stayed together out of habit. You don't know what it's like to feel truly alive with someone. Her words stung, partly because they contained enough truth to hurt. My marriage to her mother had been stable, comfortable, built on mutual respect rather than grand passion, but it had also been honest. Maybe not. But I know what it's like to build something real with someone, something that lasts because it's based on truth instead of deception. Truth is overrated, Dad. Happiness matters more than truth. Are you happy, Sarah? Really? Because you seem pretty miserable to me. She stopped pacing and looked at me with genuine surprise, as if the question had never occurred to her. I will be happy. Once I'm with Marcus. Once we're settled in California. Once I don't have to pretend anymore. You'll still be pretending. You'll be pretending that you didn't abandon a good man to chase after someone who's already proven he's unreliable. Marcus has changed. He's ready for commitment now. Because he wants DNA proof before he'll accept your children? That sounds like commitment to you? Sarah's face flushed with anger. At least he's honest about his expectations. At least he doesn't pretend to want something he's not capable of giving. Before I could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and her entire demeanor changed. Her voice became softer, more feminine, almost girlish. "Hi, baby. No, I'm at my dad's house. I know. I miss you too. Tonight. I don't know if I can get away." I listened to her side of the conversation with growing disgust. This was a woman talking to her lover while her husband's children played in the next room, while the man who'd supported her family for 5 years sat at home wondering if his marriage could be saved. "Okay, I'll figure something out. I love you too." She hung up and immediately turned to me with a pleading expression. "Dad, I need you to watch the kids tonight, just for a few hours. Marcus and I need to talk about our future, about the logistics of moving to California." "Absolutely not. Please, Dad. This is important. This could be my last chance to secure a real future for Emma and Tommy." "You want me to babysit your children while you go finalize plans to steal them away from their father?" "I'm not stealing them. I'm their mother. I have rights. Rights you've been exercising through lies and manipulation." Sarah's demeanor shifted again, this time toward the victim role she'd perfected over the years. Her eyes filled with tears. Her voice became small and trembling. "I thought you'd understand, Dad. I thought you'd want what's best for me and the children, but you're just like everyone else. You think I should stay trapped in a loveless marriage because it's the proper thing to do. I think you should stop running from the consequences of your choices." "My choices? What choices did I have? Marry the boring guy who could provide stability, or follow my heart and risk having nothing? I tried to make the responsible choice, but my heart wouldn't let me." The way she reframed her deliberate deception as romantic destiny made me angry in a way I hadn't felt in years. "Your heart? Sarah, you've been lying to your husband for 5 years. You've stolen his children, his money, his trust, his time. That's not your heart talking. That's selfishness. You don't understand what it's like to be torn between two people. You're not torn between two people. You're using both of them. You used Jacob for security and stability, while you used Marcus for excitement and passion. Neither of them got the whole truth about who you are." She wiped her eyes with a tissue, but I could see her calculating her next approach. "What if I told Jacob the truth? What if I came clean about everything?" "What do you mean?" "What if I told him about Marcus, about the children, about all of it? Would you support me then?" I studied her face, looking for signs of genuine remorse or growth. Instead, I saw someone testing a new strategy. "Why would you do that?" "Because maybe you're right. Maybe he deserves to know the truth before I leave." "And then what?" "Then he can decide if he wants to fight for our marriage or let me go peacefully. Either way, my conscience would be clear." The way she spoke about clearing her conscience while planning to destroy Jacob's life revealed everything I needed to know about her priorities. "Sarah, telling Jacob the truth isn't about clearing your conscience. It's about giving him the information he needs to make decisions about his own life." "Exactly. So will you help me?" "Help you what?" "Help me tell him. You could be there when I explain everything. Help him understand that this isn't about him not being good enough. Help him see that sometimes people just aren't compatible, no matter how hard they try." I realized she was trying to recruit me as a co-conspirator in her latest manipulation. She wanted me to help her reframe 5 years of lies as a tragic love story where everyone was a victim of circumstances. "No, Sarah. If you decide to tell Jacob the truth, you need to do it yourself in your own words without trying to control how he reacts." Her face hardened. "Fine. Then I won't tell him anything. Marcus and I will just leave, and Jacob can figure out the truth when we're gone." "You'd really do that? Just disappear with his children without any explanation?" "They're not his children, Dad. How many times do I have to say that? They are in every way that matters to him." "Well, that's his problem, isn't it? I can't be responsible for his feelings about a situation that was never real to begin with." The callousness of her words finally pushed me past my breaking point. This wasn't my daughter anymore. This was someone who'd learned to justify any cruelty as long as it served her purposes. "Get out." "What?" "Get your things and get out of my house. Take the children and go." Sarah stared at me in shock. "Dad, you can't be serious. Where are we supposed to go?" "Go to Marcus's motel room. Go to Jacob and tell him the truth. Go to a hotel. I don't care where you go. But you're not staying here while you plan to destroy that man's life. You're choosing Jacob over your own daughter. I'm choosing honesty over manipulation. I'm choosing to stop enabling your destruction of everyone around you." She tried one more approach, the one that had worked on me for years. "Dad, please. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I need my father right now. What you need is to face the consequences of your choices without dragging other people down with you." For a moment, I thought she might actually break down, might finally show some genuine emotion about the situation she'd created. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and her voice turned cold. "Fine, I'll pack our things. But when this all falls apart, when Jacob rejects the children because they're not his, don't come crying to me about how we should have handled things differently. If Jacob rejects those children, it will be because you poisoned their relationship with lies, not because biology matters more than love." Sarah went upstairs to pack while I sat in my living room, watching Emma and Tommy play with toys I'd bought them for Christmas. In a few minutes, they'd be gone, pulled into their mother's chaotic wake, and I didn't know when I'd see them again. But I also knew I couldn't be part of Sarah's plan to destroy Jacob's life, while convincing herself she was the victim. Some lines, once crossed, changed everything about who you are, and I refused to cross this one, even for my own daughter. When Sarah came back downstairs with their bags, she paused at my front door. "You'll regret this, Dad. When you're sitting here alone wondering why you chose a stranger over your own family, you'll regret this. Maybe. But I'll regret enabling your lies even more." She loaded the children into her car without explanation, telling them they were going on another adventure. Emma waved goodbye to me through the window, her small face bright with excitement about their next destination. I watched them drive away, and for the first time in days, my house felt quiet instead of tense. I'd lost my daughter and grandchildren, at least temporarily, but I'd kept my integrity, and in that moment it felt like a fair trade. 3 hours after Sarah left my house, Jacob called me. His voice sounded hollow, defeated in a way that made my chest ache. "James, Sarah won't answer my calls. I've been driving around town looking for her car, checking hotels, even went by her sister's place. Nobody's seen them. I'm starting to think she's really gone." I closed my eyes, knowing I had information that could help him, but also knowing it would destroy him. "Jacob, I need to tell you something. Sarah was here today." "What? When? Are the kids okay?" "They're physically fine. But Jacob, there's more to this situation than either of us realized. Can you come over? We need to talk face to face." 20 minutes later, Jacob sat in my living room, looking like he'd aged 10 years since morning. His hands shook as he accepted the cup of coffee I offered him. "She told me the truth about everything," I said without preamble, "about the affairs, about the children's biological father, about her plans." Jacob set down his coffee cup without drinking any. "Plans? She's been seeing the children's father again, a man named Marcus from her college days. He wants her to move to California with him and bring Emma and Tommy." I watched the color drain from Jacob's face as he processed what I was telling him. "She's planning to take them away from me." "Yes. And Jacob, I need you to know that I don't support what she's doing. What she's done to you is unforgivable." He was quiet for a long time, staring at his hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "How long has she been planning this?" "She had those DNA tests done 6 months ago because Marcus wanted proof the children were his before he'd commit to a relationship with her." Jacob winced, as if I'd hit him. "So, she's been planning to leave me for months, while I thought we were working on our marriage." "I'm sorry, Jacob, I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. Actually, it is." He looked up at me with eyes that were clearer than they'd been all day. "I mean, it's horrible, but at least now I understand what's really happening. I've been going crazy thinking I'd done something to drive her away, wondering if I could have handled things differently. You didn't do anything wrong. Sarah made her choices, and she's been making them for years." Jacob stood up and began pacing around my living room, his mind clearly working through implications and possibilities. "James, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course. Do you think there's any chance she'll change her mind? Any chance she'll come back and try to work things out?" I thought about Sarah's cold dismissal of 5 years of marriage, her excitement about starting fresh with Marcus, her complete lack of remorse about the pain she was causing. "No, Jacob, I think her mind is made up." He nodded, as if my answer confirmed something he'd already suspected. "Then I need to focus on protecting Emma and Tommy." "What do you mean?" "I mean I need to make sure that whatever happens between Sarah and me, those children are protected. They didn't ask for any of this." I studied Jacob's face, seeing something that surprised me. Despite everything Sarah had done to him, despite learning that the children he'd raised weren't biologically his first concern was still their welfare. "Jacob, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Knowing what you know now about the genetics, about Sarah's lies, how do you feel about Emma and Tommy?" He didn't hesitate. I love them exactly the same as I did yesterday. They're my children in every way that matters. The fact that Sarah lied to me doesn't change how I feel about them, even though they're not biologically yours. James, I've been their father since they were born. I've changed their diapers, taught them to walk, held them when they were sick. Emma calls me daddy and runs to me when she's scared. Tommy's first word was dada, and he was looking right at me when he said it. No DNA test can change those relationships. I felt a surge of respect for this young man who'd been betrayed in the worst possible way, but still prioritized his children's needs over his own pain. What are you planning to do? I'm going to fight for them. I don't care what the biology says. They're my kids, and I'm not going to let Sarah take them away from the only stable home they've ever known. That could be a difficult legal battle. Maybe, but I have 5 years of documentation showing that I've been their primary father figure. I have bank records showing I've supported them financially. I have witnesses who can testify about my relationship with them. Jacob was thinking like the methodical engineer he'd always been, analyzing the situation and developing a strategy. But I could see the emotion underneath his planning, the determination of a father fighting for his children. There's something else you should know, I said. Sarah asked me to babysit tonight so she could meet with Marcus to finalize their plans. You said no, I hope. I told her to leave my house. I couldn't be part of what she's planning to do to you. Jacob looked surprised. You kicked your own daughter out. She's not the person I raised, Jacob. The daughter I knew would never have been capable of this level of deception and cruelty. We sat in silence for a moment. Two men who'd been manipulated and lied to by someone we'd both trusted. James, I have an idea, but I need your help to make it work. What kind of idea? I think Sarah is going to try to disappear with the children. Maybe not tonight, but soon. If I'm going to protect them, I need to move fast. What do you need from me? I need you to help me document everything. Sarah's confession to you about the affairs, her plans to leave, her admission that she's been lying for years. If this goes to court, I'll need every piece of evidence I can get. I thought about the implications of what he was asking. Testifying against my own daughter in a custody hearing would effectively end our relationship forever. Jacob, if I do this, Sarah will never forgive me. I understand that. I'm not asking you to choose sides lightly, but those children need at least one adult in their lives who's willing to prioritize their stability over family loyalty. He was right, and we both knew it. Emma and Tommy deserved better than being used as pawns in their mother's romantic drama. What exactly do you need me to do? First, I need you to write down everything Sarah told you today. Dates, times, exact quotes if you can remember them. Everything about Marcus, about her plans, about how long she's been lying. I nodded and went to get a notebook from my kitchen. For the next hour, Jacob and I worked together to document every detail of Sarah's confessions. Her admission about the affairs, her timeline of deception, her plans to move to California, her callous dismissal of Jacob's feelings. There's something else, Jacob said as we finished writing. I think I know where she is tonight. Where? The motel on Highway 9. You said Marcus has been staying there, right? If they're planning her escape, that's where she'd go to finalize things. I felt a chill as I realized what he was suggesting. You want to confront them? Not confront them, document them. I want proof that she's been having an affair. Proof that she's planning to leave with the children. If I can get photos of them together, recordings of their conversations about taking Emma and Tommy, Jacob, that sounds dangerous and possibly illegal. It's not illegal to take pictures in a public place, and I'm not going to do anything to endanger the children. I could see the determination in his eyes, the focused energy of a man who'd finally stopped being a victim and started fighting back. What if she sees you? What if she realizes what you're doing? Then at least I'll have tried. James, I can't just sit at home waiting for Sarah to destroy my family. I have to do something. Looking at Jacob, I saw something I recognized from my own youth. The desperation of a father willing to do anything to protect his children. It was the same feeling that had driven me to work double shifts when Sarah was little. The same instinct that had made me confront her earlier today, despite knowing it would cost me our relationship. I'll go with you. Jacob stared at me. James, you don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Those are my grandchildren, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let Sarah destroy their lives without a fight. We spent another hour planning our approach. Jacob would use his phone to record any conversations we could overhear. I would serve as a witness to whatever we discovered. We'd be careful, quiet, and focused solely on gathering evidence that could protect the children. As we prepared to leave, Jacob turned to me with an expression of gratitude that made my throat tight. "James, I want you to know how much this means to me. I know what you're risking by helping me. You don't need to thank me, Jacob. You're a good man, and you've been a good father to those children. That matters more than biology or family loyalty." We drove separately to the Highway 9 motel, arriving just as the sun was setting. Sarah's blue Honda was parked outside room 112, and through the thin curtains we could see shadows moving inside. Jacob parked his truck where he could see the room clearly, and I positioned my car to block any quick exit. We settled in to wait. Two men united by circumstances we'd never chosen, but determined to protect the children we both loved. Whatever happened in the next few hours would determine the future of Emma and Tommy's lives. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like we were finally fighting for the right side. We didn't have to wait long. At 8:30, the motel room door opened, and Sarah emerged with a man I'd never seen before, but immediately recognized as Marcus. He was tall, dark-haired, with the kind of casual confidence that had probably attracted my daughter years ago. They were holding hands and laughing about something, completely oblivious to our presence in the parking lot. Jacob started recording on his phone as they walked toward Sarah's car. Even from a distance, we could hear fragments of their conversation carried on the cool night air. "Told you it would work out," Marcus was saying. "By tomorrow night we'll be halfway to California." "I just need to get the kids from my dad's house," Sarah replied. "He's being difficult about everything, but he won't actually try to stop me." Jacob and I exchanged a look. She had no idea I'd already sent her away, no idea that her plan was already falling apart. "What about the husband?" Marcus asked. "You sure he won't cause problems?" Sarah laughed, and the sound made my stomach turn. "Jacob? He's too nice to cause real problems. He'll be hurt and confused for a while, but he'll eventually realize I did him a favor. Now he can find someone who can actually give him children." The casual cruelty of her words hit Jacob like a physical blow. I could see him flinch, even in the dim light of the parking lot. "Besides," Sarah continued, "once we're in California with the kids, what can he do? He's not their biological father, so he has no legal rights. The DNA tests prove that." "It's a smart thinking getting those tests done ahead of time," Marcus said approvingly. "I like a woman who plans ahead." They reached Sarah's car, and Marcus pulled her close for a kiss that lasted longer than I was comfortable witnessing. When they separated, Sarah looked happier than I'd seen her in years. "I should go get Emma and Tommy now," she said. "Dad will hand them over once I turn on the tears and talk about how scared I am." "You sure you can handle him? Please." "I've been manipulating my father since I was 5 years old. He's never been able to say no to me when I really need something." Jacob stopped recording and looked at me with an expression that mixed pity and anger. We'd both heard enough to understand exactly how Sarah viewed the people in her life, as tools to be used for her own purposes. Marcus got into his own car, a sleek black sedan that screamed rental vehicle. "I'll follow you to your dad's place, just in case there are any problems." "There won't be any problems," Sarah said confidently. "Trust me." They drove out of the motel parking lot, heading in the direction of my house, completely unaware that Jacob and I were following at a safe distance. Sarah was about to discover that her manipulation tactics had finally met their match. 20 minutes later, we watched from down the street as Sarah knocked on my front door. When no one answered, she used her key to let herself in. A few seconds later, she emerged looking confused and angry, her phone already pressed to her ear. "Dad, where are you? I'm at your house, but nobody's here. Where are my children?" I could hear her voice clearly in the quiet neighborhood, sharp with the first edge of panic. "What do you mean you don't know where we are? We were supposed to be staying with you." She paced around my front porch, her agitation growing as whatever I was supposedly telling her sank in. "That's impossible. Jacob couldn't have taken them. He doesn't have any legal right to them." Marcus got out of his car and approached the porch, his body language shifting from casual confidence to concern. "What's going on?" he asked. "My dad says Jacob came and got the kids this afternoon. Says he was acting crazy, demanding to take them home." It was fascinating to watch Sarah construct a new lie in real time, adapting her story to fit the unexpected situation. "So where are they now?" "I don't know. Dad says Jacob was ranting about custody rights and how he wasn't going to let me take his children away from him." Jacob and I looked at each other. She was painting him as an unstable man who'd kidnapped children that weren't even his. The narrative was designed to make Marcus see him as a threat to their future family. Maybe we should call the police, Marcus suggested, and tell them what? That my husband took his own children home? That's not kidnapping, Marcus. But you said they're not his children. Legally they are, he's on their birth certificates. Until we get to California and establish paternity through the courts, Jacob has just as much right to them as I do. I could see Sarah's mind working, trying to figure out how to salvage her plan. She pulled out her phone and dialed Jacob's number. Jacob, it's me. I know you have the children. What do you mean? What children? Don't play games with me. Emma and Tommy. Where are they? From our position down the street, we couldn't hear Jacob's side of the conversation, but we could see Sarah's face cycling through confusion, anger, and growing panic. That's impossible. My dad said, Wait, what do you mean you've been home all evening? She hung up and immediately called my number again, but this time I let it go to voicemail. She tried 3 more times before giving up. Something's wrong, she told Marcus. Jacob says he's been home alone all evening. He says he doesn't know where the kids are. So where the hell are they? I don't know. Sarah's voice was climbing toward hysteria. They have to be somewhere. Marcus was looking at Sarah like he was seeing her clearly for the first time and not liking what he was seeing. Sarah, this is getting complicated. Maybe we should postpone the California thing until you get your family situation sorted out. No. Marcus, please, this is just a temporary setback. Once I find the kids, we can still leave tonight. With children who are missing? While your husband is calling the cops about kidnapping? I don't think so. Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm, her desperation now obvious even from our distant vantage point. Marcus, you promised. You said if I left Jacob, if I brought you proof the children were yours, we'd start fresh in California. You can't back out now. I can't start fresh with someone else's drama following us. This whole situation is messier than you told me it would be. It's not messy, it's just a misunderstanding. Once I explain everything to Jacob, once he realizes the children aren't his, he'll let them go. Marcus shook his head. Sarah, listen to yourself. You're talking about taking children away from the only father they've ever known. That's not starting fresh. That's destroying lives. Whose side are you on? I'm on the side of not getting arrested for kidnapping. I'm on the side of not being responsible for traumatizing 2 little kids. Maybe this whole thing was a mistake. Sarah's face went white. Marcus, please, don't do this to me. I gave up everything for you. I destroyed my marriage. I lied to everyone. I risked everything because you said you were ready for a real relationship. I was ready for a relationship with you. I wasn't ready to become an instant father to 2 kids and inherit a custody battle with your ex-husband. The conversation was falling apart exactly as Jacob and I had hoped it would. Marcus was discovering that the fantasy Sarah had sold him was much more complicated and expensive than he'd bargained for. So that's it? You're just going to abandon me? I'm going back to California, alone. If you ever get your life sorted out, if you ever figure out how to handle your responsibilities without destroying everyone around you, maybe we can try again. Marcus walked back to his rental car without another word, leaving Sarah standing alone on my front porch in the gathering darkness. Jacob and I waited until Marcus drove away before approaching. Sarah was sitting on my porch steps now, crying into her hands with the broken sobs of someone whose carefully constructed world had just collapsed. Hello, Sarah. She looked up at the sound of my voice, her face a mess of tears and ruined makeup. Dad, where have you been? Where are my children? They're safe. They're at Jacob's house where they belong. But Jacob said he didn't have them. Jacob was telling the truth. He didn't take them from you. I called him after you left my house this afternoon and told him everything you'd confessed to me. Then I suggested he pick up Emma and Tommy and take them home to their real family. Sarah stared at me in disbelief. You betrayed me, your own daughter. I protected my grandchildren from being used as pawns in your selfish games. Jacob stepped out of the shadows where he'd been waiting, and Sarah's eyes went wide with shock and fear. Hello, Sarah. We need to talk. Jacob, I can explain everything. It's not what it looks like. Actually, it's exactly what it looks like. Thanks to your father's help, I have recordings of you planning to kidnap my children and flee the state. I have documentation of your 5-year affair and your admission that you've been lying about Emma and Tommy's paternity. Sarah scrambled to her feet, looking between Jacob and me like a trapped animal. You can't prove any of that. It's just your word against mine. Jacob held up his phone. Actually, I have your own words on tape. Your conversation with Marcus tonight was very enlightening. The fight went out of Sarah all at once. She sagged against my porch railing, finally understanding that her web of lies had completely unraveled. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now you have a choice," Jacob said. "You can fight me in court, and I'll use every piece of evidence I've gathered to prove you're an unfit mother who's willing to traumatize her children to chase after a man who doesn't want the responsibility of raising them. Or you can sign over custody voluntarily and maintain visitation rights. You'd really do that? Take my children away from me? Sarah, I'd rather raise children who know their mother loves them than children who know their mother abandoned them, but I won't let you use them as bargaining chips with men who see them as inconveniences." I watched my daughter consider her options, seeing her realize that every bridge she'd burned had led her to this moment of complete isolation. "If I sign custody over to you, do I still get to see them? Supervised visits with counseling to help you learn how to have a healthy relationship with them. And if I fight you, then you risk losing them completely." Sarah was quiet for a long time, and I could see her trying to find one last angle, one final manipulation that might save her from the consequences of her choices. "I need time to think about it." "You have until tomorrow morning," Jacob said firmly. "After that, I file for emergency custody and use every piece of evidence I have to prove you're a flight risk." Sarah nodded numbly and walked to her car without another word. As she drove away, Jacob and I stood in my driveway, watching her taillights disappear into the night. "Think she'll sign?" Jacob asked. "I think she's finally run out of people to manipulate and stories to tell. She doesn't have any choice left." 3 days later, Sarah signed the custody papers. She moved back to the city where she'd gone to college, got a job, and started seeing a therapist as part of her visitation agreement. Jacob and I maintained our friendship, bonded by the crisis we'd weathered together. Emma and Tommy adjusted to their new normal with the resilience that children possess, secure in the knowledge that their daddy loved them regardless of genetics. 6 months later, I was pushing Tommy on the swing set in Jacob's backyard while Emma showed me the flowers she'd planted in their garden. They called me Grandpa James, just like they always had, and they called Jacob Daddy, just like they always would. The truth hadn't destroyed our family. Sarah's lies had. But the truth had given us the chance to build something better, something honest, something that would last. And that, I realized, was worth more than any fantasy built on deception could ever be.